Carson Wentz afterwards, after just a brutal performance to finish up the season, he talked about it and also discussed his play and then them missing the postseason.
I got to protect the ball. I got to do a better job. And so there's a lot that could be said and a lot of things to kind of digest right now. But, yeah, it's a frustrating, kind of crappy feeling right now. We were in control, being in control of our destiny last 2 weeks, and we just couldn't get it done. And it's definitely left a bad taste in my mouth, and a lot of guys' mouth. Not where we want to be, not what we expected either. We expected to finish stronger than we did.
Okay. At this point in his career, what is Carson Wentz? What do we?
Well, it sounds like an excuse maker, because at this point, right? If you're sitting there and you're having to have that conversation at this juncture of your career, you're not achieving at a high enough level where you're talking about what you need to do as it applies to the next week and the next game going into the playoffs. You're talking about, you're giving reasoning as to why you're in the situation that you're in right now and how we could be better moving forward, which is fine because, obviously as a competitor, you have to take in the lessons of what happens when you come up short. I don't want to judge that, and I don't want to come across as like I'm piling on them or I'm hating on them. But let's be clear here. When they made the Super Bowl run, which was arguably his best season as a pro, they finished it off with a different guy. And regardless of what anybody wants to say, that statue out in front of the link says it all. It's of Foles, not of Carson Wentz. And so to me, really, and I guess to sum it up, he has to make excuses for not living up to the potential of what it is that people have expected him to be or think he is, or what they want him to be, because he has not been that. Whether he is or not, he has not been that.
What he is right now is he's blind to what he is. He's not a guy anymore. He's going to have to earn his way back into being a guy that a team would trade for, being a guy that I think people look at as a starting quarterback, a franchise quarterback. Like that's unfortunately what this season became for him. It was, I don't want to say a make or break year, but on a team that, had Phillip Rivers the year before, and I think the longer Phillip was there, the better he got as far as a sense of feel for the chemistry and all that. At no point in this season did I feel like the Colts were better off with Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing about it is, you had a guy at the end of his career, potentially a future Hall of Famer in Phillip Rivers, and you're thinking Carson Wentz wants to get to that point. He had that opportunity. He had a great run game. He had a great defense. He really didn't have to do a ton. But unfortunately, it's just, and by the way, look at the team he left.
Yeah.
If that gives you any indication of where this whole thing is at for him, then he needs to realize he's blind to the fact that he is no longer going to be looked at as a guy that is coming in as your number one. You're either going to draft a guy to compete with them and take over, or you're going to bring someone else in who you feel like is an upgrade. And that's where he's at right now, whether he wants to acknowledge that or realize that or not. And trust me, from being a quarterback in the league and being drafted in the first round, how all that goes, it's a harsh reality to face because now he's the only person the rest of his career that can believe he can be that guy. Because there's not going to be anyone else out there advocating for him. There's just not. Frank Reich was the last guy. He was with him in Philly. He brought him to Indy. That's the last guy. But with what we saw from him this season, he's probably now the only one that can truly believe that he could still be that guy, and it's a tough road for him.
I thought
You're
this
not
at the
that guy,
time.
pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
I thought this at the time that his career started to unravel the second Nick Foles won that Super Bowl, because I think he realized they did that without me. We can try and say, well, it was an MVP type season. Look, he missed time at the end of the regular season. Then they go into the postseason and they do something they've never done in the history of the franchise. And I think he realized in that moment, not only can they do it without me, but the next season when he went out and Nick Foles went in. They made another run in the postseason without him. When he finally appeared in a playoff game, he got knocked out with the concussion. And there was this sentiment that, well, it must be Philadelphia. It's toxic there. It's a disaster. It's Doug Peterson. It's this. It's that. Okay. And so now Indianapolis, and I don't know what's worse, the fact that they're missing the playoffs now after they make the move to bring in Carson Wentz, or the fact that they also don't even have a first-round pick next year. So it's almost like they're committed to whatever he is, Brady, whatever Carson Wentz is moving forward, whether he's dealing with stuff mentally, whatever it is. Indianapolis is so pot committed now because of what they gave up that they just got to roll with this and hope that it doesn't blow through their championship window trying to make a guy get right again after what his career was and turned into now with all the injuries and everything else that came along with it. They're in a tough spot.
I don't think that they're going to be hanging their hat on that moving forward. I don't. I think they're going to have to start thinking about the future. And he's basically found himself in the same position that he was in Philly, where you brought in a guy in Jalen Hurts for a reason. Because and I think Philly at the time talked about, well, hey, Carson Wentz gets hurt. We're gonna have a backup, a capable backup. We've already seen how that played out, as you just laid out for us with Nick Foles, and that was the conversation then. But now after watching Hurts, and we've kind of talked about it, he just gets better and better and better the more he plays. And then you're watching Carson Wentz, and it seems like the more he plays, the more you doubt. Or the more it maybe eliminates the thoughts of what you thought he could be as a franchise guy. So, like I said, it's an unfortunate part or spot to be in his career. But the truth of the matter is, Indianapolis and the rest of the league is going to start saying, all right, we start looking at the draft. We can start looking to other guys who may have more potential upside, as opposed to what Carson Wentz is. Like, he's getting to the point where I think people look at him and say, we know what he is and we know what he's not. And that's the hard part, is when you get to a point in your career where the NFL is determined what your upside is and what your downside is and who you are, it's hard to shake that. Like, there's only so many Rich Gannons out there that come in later than their career, 30, and can win an MVP. Because first impressions can be so damning in football or in life. And that's the hardest perception to overcome, is once you make that first impression, oh, well, he wasn't the guy to win a Super Bowl, or, oh, he's the guy who gets hurt all the time. Once you make that first impression, it's really hard to overcome that.